We all know what it's like to have to travel without a vehicle, right? I mean, nobody come into this world with a key and a steering wheel or handlebars already attached. Something mothers should be grateful for, I'm sure. You likely experienced your first bicycles in your childhood. I remember my first one being a little rally striker when I reached 7 years old. To be able to travel around a little cul-de-sac outside my house faster than all the other children who didn't have a bicycle was an amazing feeling. Without realizing it at the time, and looking back now with hindsight, I was experiencing my first bit of freedom. That bike stood me well for a few years, and I would venture further and further with every outing, leading to the inevitable angry parents when I kept coming back late. I also remember the first feeling of losing the bicycle when I came back particularly late one evening, whereupon my bicycle was not only taken off me, but dismantled and put in a locked shed until I'd learned to read and appreciate the rules of timekeeping. Now, having experienced the freedom of the bicycle, being without it was very, very boring and exceptionally tiresome every time I had to go over to the shop for an item or two for my parents. Many years on, I came to my first powered cycle. It was a 125-watt foldable electric bike with what felt like half a ton of lead-acid batteries. To be able to go a little further for a little less effort was indeed a big upgrade. And now being a teenager, I was bestowed enough trust to be able to come back later in the evenings. And onward again a few more years, and I experienced my very first motorcycle. It was a Honda Mini Melody step-through moped. And I know. I can already feel and hear all the hardcore motorbikers throwing their plushy teddy bears and My Little Ponies at the screen, shouting and screaming in the vain hope I will hear you say a moped is not a motorbike. And you are right. But from the perspective of that teenager with that Honda Mini Melody that now carried him much further afield, and with barely any physical effort, I imagined I was flying around on some massive big overtorqued Triumph whose massive cylinders would only need fire on passing every second lamppost, instead of the high-pitched screaming wail of the actual 50cc two-stroke engine of the Mini Melody. For a multitude of reasons, my life changed over the next years in a way that transport just wasn't necessary. I didn't need to commute very far, and I found a bicycle did just as well for many, many years. It kept me fit and on par with my mates who only had bicycles, and also no driving licenses. From there on, when the bicycle was not sufficient, I travelled via buses and trains quite contentedly for many years. I grew a very fond attachment to the railways in this time, and also an appreciation for the buses and the crap they have to put up with just to compete to be on the roads. At 44 years old, I decided I had had enough of buses, trains, taxis, cycling, and the endless miles of walking when all other options had stopped running for the night. I discovered, rather harshly, that middle-age spread was actually a real thing, and not just an excuse for those of us who get lazy and tired with age. What that basically meant is I was rapidly becoming fatter and unfitter. So faced with this new conundrum of increased risk of heart failure, getting out of breath easily, and generally suffering as my body deteriorated through my laziness and my can't be bothered attitude, I decided to get a new updated provisional license. These were no longer the big green A3 piece of paper folded 7 times and stuffed precariously into some pouch or wallet in the hope of stopping it fading and falling apart at the folds. Now, instead, it was a small credit card sized piece of plastic with a picture of me alongside a hologram and details of my license categories and penalties, and a great ice scraper in a moment of desperation. So, the digital age has taken over and has been adopted by the government's DVLA agency, the Department for Driving Licenses Agency. Having secured this provisional license, and pridefully showing an old friend the new edition, he took my personal and license details and called his insurance there and then to put me on his policy as a second driver for his car. This was absolutely superb. I got to learn to drive a vehicle in my own time, which didn't take long really because I had gained some experience driving a Ford Orion around a farm, and occasionally beyond. So, for the cost of being added to my mate's insurance policy, I got to gain training and experience with him legally. I chauffeured him around in his Renault Scenic as often as I could and wherever he wanted to go. And after a mere 2 months, I booked one double lesson with an approved driving instructor to clear up the confusion we both had about roundabouts. I absorbed what I needed to learn from the instructor and firmly ignored his most sincere recommendation that I put off my test and get a block of lessons if I was to have any hope of passing. Then I booked myself in for my test. I did the test 3 weeks later in my mate's Scenic and passed first time, familiarity with the vehicle being a bonus. I was sure glad that I ignored that ancient, bony old grey-haired instructor when he said I wasn't anywhere near ready. Ha! Take that, old-timer! So now that I had a full license in hand in the form of an A4 pass certificate, my old mate helped me to buy a silver 1-litre Hyundai Getz. The first time I drove that car on my own legally was the biggest buzz of my life to date. This was the ultimate freedom. I now had no reason beyond the running costs and fuel to go anywhere within this country that I wanted to visit. And that is exactly what I did. I got a good bar and kitchen job that I could actually get to now I had transport. On every day off, I did many miles and visited many different and new places all over the country. I had fun consuming hundreds of miles on all types of roads. I had virtual wings, and now I was flying free. Since then, I have had another Hyundai Getz, this time a black 1.5-litre diesel that had powerful and fast legs. After that, a 7-seater Peugeot Partner combi car, and then a 3.5-ton LDV Maxus van, which was converted into a camper van by the very same old mate who got me through my license. Then a very pokey and sporty 1.7-litre diesel Vauxhall Corsa, and when that spit his pistons out in a hissy fit, I replaced it with a multicoloured, faded, yucky, pukey, bile-like yellow and blue Nissan Micra that I referred to as the hairdresser mobile, which didn't last very long. Then I was gifted a Fiat Panda which I had for a year. I later swapped it for my mate's old Renault Scenic that I had passed my test in. A year later, I now have the same Fiat Panda given back from my mate because the clutch collapsed in the Scenic, atop of some newly acquired airbag damage caused by rodents. And now, for all that has happened, I have decided I want something different. I want to experience a motorcycle. So, being as I am based here in the UK, I looked up on our government website for details about motorcycle licensing. I discovered that the first step is to obtain a certificate of basic training, commonly shortened to a CBT. So I did the googly thing and searched for my nearest ATB, approved training body. I reached out to a local motorcycle ATB and inquired about the course for the certificate of basic training. I firstly let them know that I had never had a CBT or driven a real motorcycle prior and asked them what my options were. It was explained to me that you gain the CBT by taking part in a full-day training course. I have been informed by the ATB that the first part of the day will be spent in a classroom environment taking any information about other held licenses, discovering if there is any prior experience with motorcycles, knowledge of road signs and rules, and checking our eyesight and other necessary safety discussions. The next session is an explanation about the controls of the motorcycle, where to place yourself on the roads, what to expect when you get on the road, how to check your surroundings, and how to be aware of dangers and keep yourself safe. After all, it is the highest priority of the instructor to keep you safe. They wouldn't want you to add another scratch to the dents on the training bike, would they? Following that will be the first time that you interact with the motorcycle. It will be explained how to check the motor vehicle before riding, about balance, mirrors, lighting control, reading the clock and instrumental lights, positioning and operational placement of the gears, proper clutch use, controlling the vehicle whilst manoeuvring at slow speeds, reversing, the uses of different stands, steering lock, wearing your safety gear properly, And basically, whatever else the instructor feels is necessary to explain to you so that he can feel confident that you are ready to take to the road. Depending on the progress and the time of day, you may take a break about this time before you actually hit the roads. It is recommended you carry a packed lunch unless you can be sure there is somewhere nearby to get food. This is all information you can find out from the ATB before you turn up for the day. Just call them if you're not too sure. They will be happy to share this information. All ATB centres should be happy to answer any questions and queries you may have about any aspect of the course. The final part of the day is riding out on the main roads. All the time you are on this road session, you will be wearing an intercom system fitted through the helmet which will allow you to hear the instructor who will be riding right behind to explain, advise, and instruct you as you progress. The particular ATB centre that I'm going to only has one-way communication. The learners will hear the instructor, but they cannot communicate back. I don't know if this is just rules for the centre I'm using or if it is like this all over the UK. But one thing that I really must stress to you is that it is absolutely vital that you listen to the instructor because he will be giving you vital information to help you learn to ride responsibly for your own safety and that of other road users and pedestrians around you. And unlike training in a car, the instructor is not going to be sat next to you with his own controls to take control of the vehicle if needed when something goes wrong. You ride a bike alone and need to be in control. This point should really emphasize to you and drive home the importance of listening to the instructor. It was explained to me that depending on how many applicants and the discovered skill and confidence level of the applicants, this experience on the main roads could be on a one-to-one basis with the instructor where he is only going to be talking to you and you alone. Or if you are confident and skilled enough, you may be out with another applicant, in which case you will both be able to hear the instructor talking to you together. We won't find this out until the day of the training and they have assessed our ability and confidence. One of the things that you should be aware of are the policies of the ATB centre that we're using regarding changing appointments or cancellations. The particular place that I am using insists on a full 3-day notification of cancellation or change, which they will then accommodate for free. If you try to cancel or make a change with less than 3 full days' notice, they will not accept it and you will have lost your payment for the course. It was also emphasized that should I turn up 15 minutes late on the day, I will have negated the ability to do that training course that day and will have lost my payment for the course. If you feel that there are going to be problems, I would suggest that you contact the ATB centre that you use. At the end of the day, they're only people doing a job, and the majority will be happy to accommodate any questions or changes, providing you let them know and discuss it with them more than the minimum notification period. Once I was happy with all this information that I was given, I decided that I needed to make a sacrifice. And so I used my bank card and I paid the training centre with all £165 of monthly food allocation and mutually arranged my training day appointment for 6 weeks in the future. The course for this particular place runs 8:30 a.m. until approximately 4 p.m. I was told approximately 4 p.m. because different types of people with different abilities do the course together, and it could take different times. The 4 p.m. was stated to be when 9 out of 10 people will have finished. Some people finish much sooner. Some have extra time. I'm aiming to be the one that finishes sooner. Moments after this call, it was dawning on me that I may starve to death in the coming 6 weeks, when I received a notification from my bank that the £165 payment had been taken. I also received an email from the ATB centre confirming my booking. Upon opening the email, I confirmed to myself that they had my correct information. Also included was confirmation for the date of the training course. The start time and the finish times were shown. They advised that I turn up 10 minutes before to fill out paperwork. It also reiterates that if I am more than 15 minutes late, I will have missed my appointment and will lose my fee. Mandatory items you must bring with you include your driving license and spectacles if needed, which I do. They also recommend a packed lunch, although as confirmed on my telephone call, there is a cafe next door. I saw that they will provide me with a certified helmet, gloves in sizes of XS up to 2XL, and protective jackets from XS to 5XL. They insist that we wear suitable trousers that do not have rips or tears and footwear that is sturdy and covers the ankle. Waterproof covers will also be available in case of rain. What? Rain here in Wales? Well, whatever. I'll be sure to remember my shades though. Got to at least look cool, right? It is made clear at the end of the email that there could be issues fitting to a motorcycle if you are less than 5 feet 5 inches. If this is the case, it is highly recommended that you visit the centre the business day before the training appointment to see if you can comfortably place both your feet on the ground while sat on the motorcycle. This is essential to be able to have full control of balance when stopped. Finally, they also gave the location of the centre with instructions to finding it. They again reiterate that they will need 3 full working days' notice of change or cancellation, or you will lose your fee, which, if you remember, in my case, is my monthly food allowance of £165. Also, as expected, is their contact number with address and postcode. Towards the end of the email, in small print bulleted with an asterisk, is some vitally important information for anybody who might struggle to complete the day course successfully. You should be aware that the fees paid applies to the one date only. If it is deemed that additional training is required to complete the course, additional costs may apply. It doesn't state what the extra costs may be, however. I would estimate that each extra day could cost up to another £165, although it is certainly possible they may do it for less per day. If this happens, you really need to speak to the instructor in the training centre to see your options and to determine any possible further costs. Personally, I think this should have been highlighted at booking the course and not in an email confirming the booking after payment. However, now I have read this and I am aware, I shall accept it and do my best and retake the course again if I need. Actually, no. No, I will not. If I fail a CBT course, I will beat myself severely with a plushy teddy bear and plastic My Little Pony and vow never to touch a motorcycle again. I can, and I am, going to do this. This all seems fairly straightforward. It has been absorbed into the grey matter and I have everything that I need to bring already. License, glasses, jeans, ankle-high boots. So there is no preparing to do and now I merely have to wait for the training day. Right? Well, technically, yes. I can now simply go back to living my life wandering wastelands looking for my stolen child with a dog called Dogmeat. Or I could just as easily take to planting spuds in a 30-acre field with a far 4-row planter behind an old Ford 7610 with course plate. Or I could not do that and instead make a cup of tea and read the optional bit of the appointment email. If we do read this optional bit of information, it states that the next step is to complete the new, free DVSA Highways England online training course that has been developed especially for new motorbike and scooter riders to prepare themselves for a lifetime of safe riding. Upon clicking on the link, we are presented with a web page for Safe Driving for Life by the DVSA, the Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency. It says, "Welcome to Ride Free. Learner riders, get the most out of your compulsory basic training by completing the Ride Free e-learning course. Everything you learn here will lay a foundation for your CBT, and you'll be a better, safer rider as a result. What you will learn will also help you with your other theory and practical test. It says you will learn the main rules for moped and motorcycle riders, including the highway code. Also, what other road users are likely to do, and practical advice by developing your hazard perception skills to deal with other road users." So, let's leave the spuds to rot in the ground and let the dogs starve alone, whilst we click Take the Course. I hope you enjoyed this first video of my story on how I decided to do a CBT and what I've done to initialize getting it. This is part 1 of a 3-part video series. Part 2 will be concentrating on the online test, which we will do together. Part 3 will be about the actual course. Hope you come back. Catch you soon.